All right. Hi. So this week for my presentation about sharing my learning, I wanted to talk a lot about a common theme that I saw, especially with the story of Lazarus, but also with a lot of the stories that we read in the New Testament this week. Um, so obviously, with the Savior, most of what we know about him is recorded in these accounts of the miracles that he performed. It's an understatement to say that Christ's miracles are famous, but one thing that I really kind of honed in on this week was about how even when people know that Christ can do amazing things, he kind of step by step ramps up the miraculousness, if you will, of his miracles. And so the title of my presentation kind of segues into that, but it's called The Action Precedes the Miracle. And I just said it was a study in how Christ asks us before we may ask him. So, well, anyway, I love this painting, but in the story of Lazarus, Martha, we know from scriptural accounts that Martha and Mary and the Savior and Lazarus, they were all very good friends, and the people who are watching at the time, when they see that Lazarus is dead, they say that Jesus loved him because Jesus wept when he found out that Lazarus was dead. So obviously these four were all very close: Martha, Mary, Lazarus, and the Savior. And you know that Martha knew what the Savior had done. Like, she must have been well aware of the miracles that he had been able to perform. So I listed some here that we know of: that he turned water into wine, he healed the blind, he caused the lame to walk, he multiplied the loaves and the fishes to feed, on multiple occasions, to feed thousands of people when he ought not to have been able to. But up until this point, obviously Christ had not been resurrected, but he had only done temporal miracles. He had only, and not that these aren't miraculous, but I mean, he had done things like calm the sea and multiply loaves and fishes and manipulate physical elements. And so still miracles, but with each successive miracle, he would ask greater and greater faith, because he would provide a small stepping stone, and be like, okay, here, I've done this before, but it would still require faith. And I guess what I'm saying here is that there's a parallel between this story and our lives, because even though they knew and they saw with their own eyes the miracles that he had performed, they didn't actually know that he could do what he was suggesting that they have faith that he do. And obviously in this case, I'm talking about he asked Martha to have faith that he could raise her brother from the dead. And the way that he asked her to manifest it was by moving the rock. And so I quoted in here the scriptures, the verses that I'm talking about. It's chapter 11, and it says, "And Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. And Jesus saith unto her, Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldst believe, thou shouldst see the glory of God?" And then I have a quote by President Kimball about faith precedes the miracle. And so to me, this is just more evidence of that same principle that we all know, that if we want Christ to work a miracle in us, then we have to exercise faith in him first. And I guess I'm saying that it has personal application, because in our lives, sometimes we're asking for Christ to do things for us that we've seen him do for other people, and we've got a fair amount of confidence that he can do what we need him to do. But in other cases, it really might be that this is a problem or a situation that you don't know how to deal with. And maybe Christ has done things for you before, but you genuinely don't know if he can help you in whatever your current situation is. And I would just posit to you, or to anyone who listens, or even to myself, that there's never a precedent for the miracles that Christ can perform. He is not constrained by what he's done before or what you think he can do. He is God. He can do whatever our faith is sufficient to ask for. And so I want to close with a thought from the late President Monson about how faith relates to miracles, and this is a well-known quote, and then actually before I read it, I'll just say one more thing, that even though faith precedes the miracle itself may not be preceded by a miracle that is equal in size. Raising Lazarus from the dead had no equivalent prior to that point. I mean, later on, Christ himself would be raised from the dead. He would overcome death entirely by performing the atonement and also the resurrection. But prior to that, there had been nothing of that scale that had ever been done. And I would just say, why not for you? Like, why not in your life? You just have to have faith sufficient. I mean, Martha moved the stone. She clearly had enough faith to follow what he told her to do, even though she had no right really to believe that he would raise her brother from the dead. What equivalency had she to compare that to? So, okay, I'll read the quote. So, faith precedes the miracle. It has ever been so and shall ever be. It was not raining when Noah was commanded to build an ark. There was no visible ram in the thicket when Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac. Two heavenly personages were not yet seen when Joseph knelt and prayed. First came the test of faith and then the miracle. Remember that faith and doubt cannot exist in the same mind at the same time, for one will dispel the other. Cast out doubt, cultivate faith. And I will just end on that, and thanks for listening.